LinkedIn Basics workshop. My name is Lucas Passo. I am the Professional Development Chair of the Chicago School Student Association. We are a group of students that work on planning programming like this for our students here at the Chicago School in Southern California. If you are interested in potentially getting involved with the Chicago School Student Association, we do have positions in our leadership team available. So I believe Megan, are you going to pop your email? Okay, so go ahead and reach out to Megan Marshall if you are interested in joining up with the CSSA. We are, as I said today, going to focus on resume and LinkedIn basics. This is the first of a two-part workshop where we'll be talking about resume and LinkedIn. Next month on Thursday, October 28th, again, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock p.m., we'll be having an advanced resume and LinkedIn building workshop. So if you like what you are learning today and want to take that a little further, go ahead and mark October 28th from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock on your calendars, and we will be sending out more information on that shortly. But like I said, we do have a ton of stuff to get through today. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our speaker, our guest speaker. Elka Hart is the Assistant Director of our Career Services here at Chicago School, and she has an incredible presentation for us today. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor to Elka.
Thanks so much, Lucas. I really appreciate being invited to speak to the group today. We will be covering resume building and LinkedIn basics. Just before we get started, I just wanted to, I guess, mention a couple of things. Again, this is a really superficial overview of the two topics. There's a lot of information, and I really want to leave time at the end for questions. And so I'm going to keep it as brief as possible, which will be difficult. So I was thinking like today will be more of the what, and then in a month, we will come back and talk more about like how to do all of these great things that I'll be talking about. So when you ask career advisors, you know, how to write resumes, depending on how many you ask, you'll probably get a variety of answers. This can be very frustrating for students and a little bit confusing, but I want you to know that in general, overall, the information that we share really comes from, you know, our years of experience in the field, staying on top of trends, and you know, going to workshops and talking with colleagues, going to sources, reliable sources. So I hope that what I will share with you will be of value. But again, at the end of the day, it's your resume, it's your profile on LinkedIn, and you are allowed to put on there whatever you feel comfortable. But also a reminder that, you know, we all have different backgrounds. Some of you might already have a lot of experience in the field that you are preparing yourself for, and others have none. And so that will affect the kind of information that goes on your resume. So I just wanted to kind of keep that in the back of your minds. The other piece is I am going to focus on resumes. I will touch on CVs. They are similar, but they're not the same. So if you have very specific questions around CVs, I have put my email address in the chat. Feel free at any time to email me. Again, we're going to try and leave time for questions at the end. So hopefully I can get to those. So resumes, here's the Merriam-Webster definition. It is a short account of your career and qualifications, which means that it is a summary, right? It's not going to be an autobiography. You're not putting everything you ever did on your resume. You can consider the resume a job search tool, but it is not going to guarantee you a job by any means. It is just the beginning steps, right, of the job search process. What the resume can do for you is get you in the door for an interview, right? So there are a lot of steps that you need to take. before you land that job, and the resume is that very first one. Recruiters, they scan resumes. They do not read them word for word, especially on the first go around. Different sources say anywhere between 6 to 10 seconds, which really is not a whole lot of time. And so you want to remember the word relevance. All right. You will ideally tailor your resume for each job that you apply for. You want to keep it specific to the qualifications and the experience that they're looking for. And so the job posting is going to be your friend. In the job posting are all the clues that you need, the skills that they're asking for in a successful candidate, the duties and responsibilities in the position. So if you have that kind of experience, you know absolutely to include that on your resume. But really, it's just the resume is a summary of the most relevant and related experience that you have to convince that employer that you are a great candidate for the position and that you would like to have an interview. Just very quickly about CVs. So they are typically in the US, saved for job searching in academia, research, more science type positions. And then also, of course, if you are applying to graduate programs, they will potentially ask for a CV. Outside of the US, for instance, in Europe, they will call a resume a CV. So the name is interchangeable. And so you're going to want to make sure that you are providing the appropriate document to whichever employer you're sending it to. A CV is much longer than a resume. So not that it's going to be an autobiography, but it's more static, right? So the information remains the same. And every time you complete, let's say, an internship or graduate from university, you're adding that information on there. So it just gets longer and longer, which is what the employers want in terms of CVs. So you don't have to tailor it as much to each position. You're simply the laundry list of everything you've ever done, especially inside of academia. So back to resumes, because it is a concise summary, we try to keep it to 1 to 2 pages. If you have extensive experience and a lot to say, sometimes it'll fall onto 3. You know, it's not a bad thing. Again, we're just really trying to keep the relevance in front of the employer. So if at all possible, to keep it to no more than 2 pages. You want to make sure that the font is easy to read, that the size is appropriate for people who may have to wear glasses, that it's not too small, that they have to start squinting. And essentially, really, all you want to do is make it very easy for the employer to find the information that they're looking for very quickly. All right. Going to use bullet points for descriptions inside the experience sections. And then whatever kind of formatting you use, whether you bold all the organization names or you italicize your job titles, whatever you end up using, just be sure that it's consistent throughout. Okay. When you are writing up your education piece and all of your work experience, anything with a history, you will start with the most recent information first. So we call that reversed chronological order. So for instance, for education, you all would start with Chicago School in the program you're currently in, since that's your most recent. Action verbs. So we really encourage, when you are writing your work history, to be as descriptive as possible. I personally think that writing the work history descriptions is the hardest part of writing a resume, because what you're trying to do is say as much as possible with as few words as possible. So using action verbs where they can be very descriptive can become, really handy. We have a guide that lists a bunch of action verbs. If you get stuck and end up using the same words, over and over again, use a thesaurus, get creative, and always, you can reach out. We're happy to review your resumes with you. You are going to write your resume in first person, but without the pronouns. So no I, me, or my. And last but not least, make sure that you review your resume before you send it out. So no typos, no grammatical errors. Unfortunately, recruiters look for any reason to throw you in the no pile just because they have hundreds, literally, of resumes that they're searching through, and they're putting, and there's a no pile, a yes pile, and a maybe pile, and something as unfortunate but as easy as finding a typo on a document will be enough to say, well, no, we're not going to interview this person. So have somebody review it. If not us, have a friend, a roommate, whoever, take a look at it. One tip that I share with students is, if you want to review it yourself, start at the bottom right of the document and then read it sort of backwards up through to the top left. It will make you slow down and read it very carefully, and you're more likely to catch any errors that there might be. So we're going to go through the, I think there's like 5 most important sections that you definitely want to include on your resume. There are many more, and we will discuss those. But the very first, obviously, is your name and contact information. So that will be at the top of your resume. Your name is the largest, the largest words on your resume will be your name. You want to make it bold and all capped, nice so that it stands out so the employer knows who you are. And then contact information obviously will include your email address, phone number, which is not on this example, your LinkedIn URL, which we'll talk about later. And if you happen to have a website that is a professional website with examples of any kind of work that you are wanting to share with the employer, you are welcome, obviously, to include that as well in the contact info section. In terms of physical address or your location, that's kind of become less important as the years have gone on, mainly because it was important on a resume back in the day because we used snail mail. Nowadays, you will be, communicating with employers by email or phone. So having your complete physical address on a resume is really not all that critical. If you want to let them know what city and state you're in or what country, you can certainly include that on there. One note about email address. So if you want to use your school email, you can certainly do that. I do recommend that you create an email account that's specifically for a job search, just so that you know that everything coming from employers is going to one place and that nothing will get lost in the shuffle. You still obviously want to look through your junk mail or your spam folder to make sure you're not missing out on any potential interviews. So, just create a professional email address, first and last name, something like that, so that you've got that ready to go. What has become very common on a resume now is either a summary, or they call it a profile, something that's just a short paragraph that explains very quickly to the employer who you are, what you're looking for, and what you bring to the table. If you think about the question, tell me about yourself, in an interview, that can be sort of your guideline on how and what you're going to say in your summary at the top of a resume. In the example here, this person, and you'll see there's personal pronouns, so I would not use those on there, but it states a licensed clinical social worker with over 10 years of professional experience, eager to help youth works clients. So they're name dropping the employer's name. So that's tailoring the resume specifically to them. So working with the clients through first-class treatment plan development, clinical experience, and client assessment skills. You'll see that those three items are bolded just to highlight the fact that these are keywords that were found in the job description. So again, looking at the job posting as your best friend, when you're writing your resume, look and see what's clearly important to the employer, the things that you will be doing on a day-to-day basis. And if you've done that kind of work, then certainly include it into the summary. You can also add some accomplishments or quantify the information the way they do here. At the last part of their summary statement, at XYZ Center, created 50+ treatment plans, worked with 40+ clients, etc. That's just really specifying, letting the employer know, what you're capable of doing. And so you'll be able to do that kind of work for them. So the more specific, the better. Now, there are going to be times when you just simply don't have, 10 years of professional experience in the field. So for somebody who's more of an entry level or a recent graduate going into a new industry or field, more of a short objective statement is enough to put at the top of your resume, even if it's just something like including the job title and the name of the employer. So for a long while, that's what I would do, or just say career counseling position at XYZ school. I've now transformed that into a longer summary, but it worked for many years. So the education piece, you'll see right away on this little infographic that I'm showing you that it says to leave the section for last. Again, this is more for individuals who already have substantial experience in the field that they're looking to get a job in. If you are new to the field, don't have a lot of experience yet, I encourage you to put the education section closer to the top of the resume and then to elaborate, right? So you can include things like relevant coursework, any projects or research that you have completed that is related or connected in some way to the field or position that you're applying to. So at least they see that you've got that under your belt and are looking, to get that professional experience. So in the education section, again, it's most recent first. So you will start with the Chicago school. You'll add the location, so what campus you're on, your degree that you're pursuing, the program name, of course. And then we typically recommend, instead of the range of dates, so the entire time that you've been attending, instead of putting those dates, simply include your anticipated graduation date. And then for any other degrees that you may have already completed, just the grad date is sufficient for those. Okay, so you don't have to say attending 2020 to present. You can just put anticipated graduation date 2022. We know that sometimes the grad date changes for whatever reason, and that's fine. So you'll just update it as needed. Also in the education section, you can include any honors, awards, any significant projects you might have been involved with under the school information. And then lastly, there's just a note here to not worry so much about GPA. There are a few fields where it is required to include a GPA on a resume, but more often than not, there's no need to include it. If you are proud of your academic achievements, there's certainly nothing wrong with putting it on. Most doctoral students keep it off just because they're doctoral students, and so employers can anticipate that you've been, doing well academically and will do well professionally also. And if they want to know your GPA, they can request transcripts. All right, so your work experience section will probably be the bulk of a person's resume. Again, you want to make sure that you're tailoring it to the job that you're applying for. This means that you will likely change up your resume almost every time that you're sending it out, unless you are submitting resumes to very similar positions each time. But it's important to make sure that you're using those keywords that are in the job description that you find in the job posting, especially when an employer is using what we call an ATS or automated tracking system, where they're searching for those keywords. So be sure that you are familiar enough with the job posting so that you can become familiar with that language and then use it as you're describing your work experience. So in terms of format, again, it's going to be most recent first. So reverse chronological order, whatever job you are holding now or whichever was your most recent, that'll be the first one you put on your resume. You will put your job title, the name of the organization, city and state or location, the dates that you worked there. And if you are still currently there, then you'll put, 2021 to present. And then a bullet list of, your biggest accomplishments and sort of day-to-day responsibilities. Again, being as descriptive as possible, but keeping it short and to the point. What else? Oh, there's a note here about gaps on a resume. If that is a concern for you, know that employers nowadays are much less concerned about job hopping or significant gaps if you didn't work for a couple of years. If they have a question about it, they will most likely ask you in the interview. If you feel like it's really important that they know why you have those gaps, you can certainly include that in a cover letter, but you don't have to be very wordy about it on the resume. Okay. So skills section has become really important on a resume. Many employers nowadays are actually doing what we call skills-based recruiting. So they are really honing in on specific skill sets that they expect their employees to already have before they even start the job. So you might have heard about, hard skills, soft skills, transferable skills. Hard skills tend to be those that are very specific to a profession. If you take a look, for instance, at this list here, it's still working off of a social worker's resume, but it's certainly applicable to psychology students. So they have things like counseling, treatment plan development, crisis intervention, psychopathology. Those are very specific to a field, right? And so those are considered hard skills. So you want to be sure, again, to read through the job posting, highlight any of the skills that you see on there. And if you have those skills, feel free, by all means, to put them on the list. You don't want it to be a laundry list of like 25 skills. Here it's suggesting, 6 to 12. I think 6 is a good number. Pick those that tend to, scream out at you when you're reading the job posting. Again, I always have to defer to those students who don't yet have a lot of experience in the field they're going into. It's perfectly all right to include what we call soft or transferable skills, which tend to be more of the interpersonal characteristics, communication, if you're a team player, things like that. And again, especially if you see those words in the job posting, know that it's okay to include them on a skills list. So those are the pieces or the sections that will most likely be on everybody's resumes. These, this list here of 7 or 8, will completely depend on your background. So some of you might have volunteered in the past, others of you may have not. Some of you might already be certified in other fields, others are not yet. So it just really depends, but these are sort of common sections that people do include on a resume, things like community service or volunteer work. I mentioned relevant coursework and projects earlier. So this is also a piece about resume writing where you can kind of do your own thing, right? You can either include that information in the education section, or if you want it to really be highlighted in a separate section, then you can use that as a heading. That's really up to you. Extracurricular activities can include, either on or off campus organizations like CSSA, particularly if you hold a leadership position, you want to share that information on your resume. Honors and awards, achievements, again, if they are primarily academic, you're more than welcome to keep those under your education heading, or you can separate them out. Licenses, certifications, trainings, that can be a section. Professional affiliations. So if you are a member of a professional org for your industry, even if you're a student member, you can feel free to include those. With regards to skills, you don't want to forget about any language skills you have, and then certainly technical skills, right? Social media, hardware, software, whatever it is that you're using. You can make a nice list in your skill section around those. A quick note about references. So on a resume, references are typically not listed. So you will have a list of 3 to 5 references on a separate document. You'll have your own separate reference list that you will submit when the employer requests them. So you don't have to submit it at the same time as your resume. You also do not have to put on the bottom of the resume references available upon request, because that's implied. So just remember not to include it on your resume. Besides all those sections that we have discussed, the CV will have additional sections, again, because it is tailored very often towards academia or education. So these are some sections that you might be including. Things like your training experience, whether it's practicum or internship. And then you'd include your supervisor's name and how many hours you've completed. Any teaching experience, and this can be anything from being a TA to a tutor or even adjunct faculty. Research experience, any publications you might have, or conference presentations. And very often CVs will include references, so that's another difference right there. This is a very simple template that you can actually access through Handshake. Just wanted to provide a visual of what a resume might look like. You see there's a lot of white space, which is good. It gives the reader, just makes it easy to read the information. Contact information on the left. They don't have their LinkedIn URL there. You always want to include that if you do have a profile. And they've put their summary there, and then they've got their education, their experience. You'll see that the experience section, actually the descriptors or the descriptions are not bulleted. I do encourage that just for easier readings, and then the skills list. One thing I will say about templates, they can sometimes be difficult to manipulate if you want to change things, put them in a different order, or change the spacing. So if you do have more information than just this that you want to include on a resume, then it will put it to 2 pages, which again is fine. but just kind of wanted to throw that out there. I think I have a link. This is just a very simple example of a recent grad. You'll see they have an objective, which is pretty general, but again, if you don't have a lot of experience, you know, just stating that they're looking for a counseling position in a community mental health center. The education piece, they do have some professional experience. They've included their internship inside of that. You'll see if it goes to more than one page, you always want to put your name and page number on the subsequent pages. So what they've done is separated out their professional experience from other work experience, which may not be as relevant to what they're looking for. Then they've got leadership and volunteer work. They're a member of the ACA and they speak Spanish. So again, just a visual. All right, so if you like, I'm happy to stop before I jump into LinkedIn and answer any questions. Megan or Lucas, have you been monitoring the chat?
Yeah, that sounds good. We have quite a few here, so we'll try to get through a few. So Amanda asks, how would you list multiple roles in the same company on your resume?
That's a great question. Typically what you'll do is put the name of the organization at the top with, you know, location and then the complete dates, so the entire time that you've worked there, and then start with the most recent job title that you hold and describe that one probably in more detail than the others. And then you would just separate them out by job title. You just leave one space and then go down. If there is a job title where you did more relevant stuff than the current job title, then, you know, make that one longer. But that would be sort of the order that I would put it in. Hope that makes sense.
Awesome. And then Holly asked, if you have previous education that is relevant but incomplete, such as an incomplete master's or doctorate in a related field, but that you do not plan on completing, how do you recommend including that, or should you leave it off?
If it's relevant, if it's related, I would go ahead and include it in the education section and then just put the dates that you attended. And what you might want to also do is include any relevant coursework that you completed at that particular school that might be relevant for your future.
Awesome. And then also from Holly, if you are functional in a foreign language but not proficient, would you include it on your resume?
Yes, and just be specific. So I don't know if it was on this example that I showed earlier, but you can write, you know, intermediate fluency, or there are different ways of explaining the level of proficiency that you have. So I would just go ahead and do that. That's fine. But if you're not comfortable with them knowing that, if you think that they're going to start speaking to you in that language and you know you can't answer, then leave it off.
Awesome. And then I'm probably going to pronounce this name wrong, so please correct me if I do. Obaida asked how to make sure that my resume is ATS friendly.
Yes, so this is something that I'm going to talk about in the next workshop, because it does get a little bit, there's just a lot to say. But the most important thing is what I've already mentioned, and that's using the keywords. You're going to want to use very simple fonts. There shouldn't be a lot of like tabbing and actually bullet points on that particular format, because the system might read it incorrectly and then it's just going to toss you out, which is awful. And we don't like that happens at all. But I will touch on it next time. And if you don't want to wait, please email me so that we can discuss.
Awesome. And that's everything we have so far. Please keep the questions coming, folks.
All right. So then I will continue on, we're going to jump right into LinkedIn. Lucas and I thought that, these are two good subjects to talk about together, or topics, because your LinkedIn profile is similar to a resume, right? The great thing about LinkedIn is you can just do so much with it. Again, today is going to be a very brief overview. I will talk about all the wonderful ways you can use it as a job search and research tool next month. But here is another dictionary definition that LinkedIn is the name of a social networking website. So not very specific. Some quick stats. 740 million users in more than 200 countries. There are more than 55 million companies on the platform. So like, what a wealth of information for you to research. It's available in 24 languages. Over half of the college students in the US are actually on LinkedIn. And you'll see that it's used more often, like on a monthly basis, but even 22% use it every day. So what is it? I like to call it the professional Facebook. It really is a professional networking site, right? So it's helping people to make connections, to grow their network of people that they can ask questions of. It's a way for you to display your resume in public, and it's just a great job search tool. The other piece that I will delve into next time is just around developing your professional brand, right? Your identity. And LinkedIn really helps with that, because you can post, you can respond to people's posts, you can share articles and videos and talk about them. And so you're, really starting to build this reputation amongst colleagues by doing that, by interacting with them. So I just see it as, and people in career services agree, that it's really the best and most valuable job search tool around right now. So I don't know if you all are familiar with LinkedIn, and if you are familiar, I don't know if you have a profile, but that is what I'm going to focus on for the next part of this workshop. So in the middle of this screen, you'll see a menu. This is what you'll find at the top of your main page when you log into LinkedIn. The home button is much like any other social media page, like Facebook and Instagram, where it's just a news feed. So you see the people that you have connected with, you will see what they're posting, you'll see articles of interest to you based on how you've completed information on LinkedIn. Companies that you're following, you'll see their posts. And that's what LinkedIn will open up to every time you log in. We'll go to your homepage. My network, this is where you'll find your connections, so the people that you have connected with. It also allows you to search for other people. The jobs link, so if you're in a job search, this is going to be a very important place. It's very comprehensive. It's a job board. You can set job alerts, you can research employers, and a bunch of other things that we will talk about next time, but just a great, great tool. There is a messaging option where you can chat with people who are in and out of your network. When people are not yet in your network and you're trying to reach out, that your ability to reach out will depend on the type of subscription that you have to LinkedIn. Something else I'll talk about next time. But I will say that using the free edition of LinkedIn is perfectly sufficient for anything that you might want to do. So you don't have to pay if you don't want to. Notifications, you'll see when I did this, I had 28 notifications. I don't hop on there as often as I should. But again, it's like any other social media site. You will be notified if a connection has, let's say, a work anniversary, or if they posted something, if somebody replied to one of your posts. Job alerts will come up here, and a bunch of other things. So I'm going to share my profile with you in a bit, and you'll see what my notifications look like. And then the me on the far right with my little face, when you click on that, it will give you access to your actual profile, which again, you can consider as your resume. So the profile is what we're going to focus on today, especially for those of you who have not yet completed one. This is your landing page. This is where when people click on your name, when they're logged into LinkedIn, they will see all the information that you have put in there. So as you look at this list of sections or headings, you'll see that many of them are very similar to what we've discussed around resumes. The good thing about LinkedIn is that you can add a personal touch, right? You can really personalize it, use more descriptive language, make it have your own voice. You're not targeting one specific job when you're filling out your profile. So you can be more general, you can include more information than you would on your typical resume. Some of the pieces that are maybe unique or different from a resume. So one is the recommendations. This is really great because you can ask others in LinkedIn to write a very brief, it's almost like a letter of reference that will be public on your profile. So anybody who goes onto your profile will see it and read about how wonderful you are and what all these people think about you. So it's definitely an advantage to have those on there. And then the other big thing that I think is great is the skills section. So skills and endorsements allows you to not only make a list of the skills that you have, but then your connections can actually endorse you. So for instance, my supervisor, Charles Kelly, he works out of the Chicago office. He and I both have career counseling skills. And so there might be a prompt on my page one day that says, you and Charles Kelly both have career counseling skills. Would you like to endorse him? And I know that he does a good job in that area. So I would say yes. And that just increases the number on his list. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's just a way to, number one, toot your own horn and have other people toot it for you, but also for employers to see where your skills really lie. So on the previous screen, the first section that was listed for your profile is the introduction. It goes into detail. This is the first thing at the very top of your profile that people will see. Just talks about, where you are currently. I put a little warning sign here just to remind me to tell you that some of the names of the sections are not necessarily consistent on LinkedIn. When I was preparing for this, I was looking at my own profile to kind of see, oh, did I, fill all of these things out? And is everything displayed on my profile? And some things were not consistent. So if you get a little bit lost while you're doing your profile or a little confused or have questions, you're not alone. I feel the exact same way. If you have specific questions, again, please feel free to reach out individually. So it's going to have your name. You get to put a profile photo on there. You can also have a background photo, much like Facebook, for instance, just to make it look prettier. A headline is kind of like a slogan or just sort of a one-liner that you want the employer to know about you, something that just grabs their attention. If you're currently working, you can include your position, what industry you're in, where you're going to school, where you're located, your contact information, of course, and then a summary, which is kind of like a summary that you put on your resume. So this is mine, just very quickly. So there's my background photo, my favorite quote, there's me. Very old photo. So there's my name. And then this is my headline I use this headline, I created it when I was in a job search. So I kept it very broad. I might want to change it now. I don't know. I think it still describes me. I chose the LA metropolitan area. When you click on here on my profile, it'll show my phone number and email address. It shows where I work and it shows where I went to school, but it does not show my job title anywhere, which I know I filled out. So that's a confusing piece to me. Also, it doesn't show my degree. So I don't know what to do about that. I think I have to ask LinkedIn why they make you fill out those things and then it doesn't show up. Just going to spend a little bit of time showing you what the profile page looks like. So again, here is the menu that I showed you earlier. So when you click on me and you go on view profile, then this is what you come to. So this is what I showed you earlier. When I keep scrolling down, it lets you know kind of if I've been in any searches, who's been looking at my profile. And then again, here's the other piece that confuses me. They changed the name of summary to about, but nobody tells you that that's what it is. So I'm telling you. Anytime you see a pencil that allows you to edit, mine is very short, it needs to be a lot longer. Then here are the pieces that are like your resume, right? Your experience, so all my jobs, education, volunteer experience. So here's what's cool about the skills. You can choose skills and then it'll let you know like who has endorsed me, how many people have endorsed me for those skills. They separate industry knowledge, tools and technology, and then interpersonal skills. So in a way, again, this is more like the soft skills. These are more the hard skills. But anybody who is logged into LinkedIn, because my profile is public, will be able to see this information. Here are the recommendations from previous colleagues. And that is what it looks like. When I go to my home button, it looks like, you know, many other social media sites, right? It's just a feed. I can access my profile on the left. There's always news on the right. So it just kind of keeps you informed of everything. So we will delve into this a lot more the next time we meet. Hopefully you'll join us. In closing, very quickly, just some things to think about. Definitely write a headline, just something. If you're struggling with it, talk to me or look at other students on LinkedIn for ideas, but it can be really helpful. Put a photo on. You are 7 times more likely to be viewed if you have a photo on your profile, but make sure it's a professional photo, that you're not, you know, holding a pet or at a pool party or something like that. This is a professional networking site. So thirdly, since you're still students, be sure to put as much education information as possible, projects, coursework, test scores, anything that you're proud of, you can include. You can upload documents, research papers, whatever it is that you want to share with employers. Make sure to write your summary. Again, this is just your tell me about yourself, kind of a statement that really lets employers know who you are. They've changed the name. It is now skills and endorsements. Don't forget about that. Make sure that you're always updating your status. So when you graduate, you want to put your grad date. If you get a new job, be sure not to forget to add it on. If you're learning a new language, be sure to include that. Always be on the update. Connect with groups. So groups can be things like Chicago School alumni. The APA has a group on LinkedIn. joining these just allows you to interact with professionals. You can ask questions, maybe find a mentor. And again, you're just starting to build your identity amongst these people, which is really important. Make sure that you get recommendations from at least one person from every job you've ever held, which is really great. You can create a unique LinkedIn URL so that it's just your name, and be sure to put that on your resume. And then lastly, don't be afraid to share work. So again, if you want to upload videos or, slide decks or whatever it is, that helps employers to know the work that you're capable of doing, then just go ahead and do that, show off, it's okay. That's it for today anyway. Any questions?
Feel free to either just unmute and ask, or you can also put them in the chat box if you'd rather that I read them out loud.
Again, I've listed my email address here. It's in the chat. I welcome any questions via email. You're always welcome to reach out and connect, schedule an appointment. I'm happy to work with you.
And Elka, we had a request for the slides of this, of your presentation. Would I be able to get them and send them out to them?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
All right, great. We'll hang out for any questions that might come our way, before 4 o'clock. But I just wanted to take the time to thank you all for stopping by and hanging out with us for the last hour to talk about resumes and LinkedIn. As we said, we will have another sort of more advanced resume and LinkedIn workshop on Thursday, October 28th from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. So mark that on your calendars. We'll be sending out announcements similar to what we did for this workshop in the next couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for those as well.
Thanks again, Lucas, for inviting me to speak to the group. I really appreciate that. And Megan for coordinating.
No problem. Thank you all for coming. Feel free to hop off if you don't have any questions. Otherwise, stick around and Elka can help.
And of course, a huge thanks to Elka for presenting today. It's been so informative. I know I'm seeing all of the thank yous roll in. So I think it's definitely information that is very needed. Colette just asked, what if you have a lot of self-employment, more than traditional work assignments?
So there are many more people who, are self-employed and own their own businesses or entrepreneurs, and there's definitely a way to include that information on a resume. If you have a name for your business, you can do that. Otherwise, you just simply say that you're self-employed and then just describe what you do. Yeah, definitely.